yet you won't utter a word of criticism against him. Why can't you be honest and tell us what you really think of how he led the Labour Party?
We need to bear in mind we've lost 4 in a row.
But this is the one you really lost.
Oh, no, we really did. And I went out with 44 campaigning teams, and that discussion was there in every team, in every
So why not a
constituency.
word of criticism of the man who led you to that defeat?
The overload of the manifesto, people felt there was too much in it. And I'm sad to say, and in a number of areas, anti-Semitism came up. So the leadership did come up.
No.
Did you know a man was arrested in the UK for simply joking with a police officer? While violent criminals walk free on the streets, the police are busy detaining citizens for harmless banter. Andrew Neil didn't hold back when he exposed this shocking hypocrisy under Starmer's watch. The police couldn't get any lower, yet they have, Neil declared, as the footage of this absurd arrest sparked nationwide outrage. Stay tuned to see the full breakdown of this disturbing incident. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Imagine living in a country where cracking a joke with a police officer can land you in handcuffs while violent criminals walk the streets untouched. It sounds like dystopian fiction, but according to Andrew Neil, this nightmare scenario is becoming Britain's new reality under Starmer's watch. A recently emerged video has sent shockwaves through British media circles showing something almost too absurd to believe. The footage captures a man engaging in what any reasonable person would recognize as harmless banter with a police officer. Just typical British humor, the kind that's been the backbone of the nation's culture for centuries. Nothing threatening, nothing dangerous, just a bit of lighthearted chat. The officer's response? Arresting the man on the spot. The disproportionate nature of this response would be comical if it weren't so disturbing. As Neil pointed out in his scathing commentary, this incident isn't just about one overzealous officer. It's symptomatic of a frightening new direction in British policing. While harmless pranksters find themselves in handcuffs, serious criminals operate with increasing impunity. Violent assaults, robberies, and drug trafficking cases pile up unsolved on desks across the country.
Number one, you say, but you won't criticise it.
Well, it's not I won't criticise him. Jeremy...
But you haven't.
Well, Jeremy is stepping down. We're now asking the question who should be the next leader of the Labour Party, and I'm trying to answer that question.
Charlie Faulkner, fellow Labour lawyer, he's known you for years.
I know Charlie very well, yeah.
Yeah, he says, and he knows you very well, and he says the truth is you were, quote, appalled by the awfulness of the Corbyn leadership.
I don't speak outside the shadow cabinet.
Were you appalled by the awfulness of Mr. Corbyn?
We obviously got it very wrong in that general election. Jeremy has stepped down.
The statistics Neil highlighted paint a grim picture. Thousands of violent crimes remain unresolved, with detection rates hitting record lows across major metropolitan areas. Yet somehow, police resources are being diverted to monitor jokes, comments, and what Neil described as thought crimes rather than protecting citizens from actual harm. This blatant misallocation of resources isn't just ineffective, it's dangerous. When was the last time you heard about a major drug trafficking ring being dismantled, or a violent gang being brought to justice? These stories grow increasingly rare, while tales of ordinary citizens facing police scrutiny for trivial matters multiply.
Tell you what a lot of people, because you're reluctant to say what Charlie Faulkner thinks you think, and that is you're reluctant because a large part of the Labour membership still worships Jeremy Corbyn.
I worked well with him. He actually led us through some really difficult times. I had disputes with Jeremy, things I didn't agree with him on, and we either had it out around the shadow cabinet table, or on occasion I went to his constituency office and we had a discussion there.
You cannot plan the future without understanding the past, and if you have nothing bad to say about Mr. Corbyn's leadership now, why did you take part in the attempt to topple him as leader in 2016?
Consider the case Neil referenced involving a grandmother from Greater Manchester. Police officers showed up at her door, not because she'd committed a violent offense or posed any threat to society. No, they were there to question her about a social media post from a year earlier that someone had deemed offensive. As the woman herself recounted, the police were there for a non-crime hate incident, which related to a tweet of a year ago. Let that sink in, a non-crime incident. Police resources dedicated to investigating something even they acknowledge isn't actually a crime. If that example doesn't raise your eyebrows, perhaps the 73-year-old grandfather's story will. This elderly man found himself being interrogated for over an hour simply because he called a neighbor Mrs. Twit. That's right, over 60 minutes of police time spent on a mild insult that wouldn't be out of place in a children's book. These aren't isolated incidents. They represent a fundamental shift in policing priorities that Neil traces directly to political influence. Under Starmer's leadership, the focus has dramatically shifted away from traditional crime fighting toward monitoring and controlling speech. The police, once seen as protectors of the public, increasingly function as enforcers of political orthodoxy.
January 2019, you told Andrew Marr, I will campaign for in and I will vote for in. That was not Mr. Corbyn's collective policy.
Andrew, you're wrong about that. The way we decided this was in the shadow cabinet or in subcommittees, and I talked to Jeremy about it.
Hold on, because the facts do matter. You're a lawyer, so you will know facts matter.
We had these difficult situations. We thrashed it out around the shadow cabinet table and agreed lines, and I stuck to those lines. When I thought there was a need for a more personal discussion, I went to see Jeremy in his constituency office, and we had a very good discussion. The overload of the manifesto, people felt there was too much in it. And I'm sad to say, in a number of areas, anti-Semitism came up. So the leadership did come up.
What makes this trend particularly insidious is how it erodes public trust in law enforcement. When citizens witness the stark contrast between the swift response to trivial matters and the apparent indifference to serious crime, disillusionment inevitably follows. People begin to question whether the police are truly serving their interests or merely acting as instruments of political control. So who's behind this transformation? Neil doesn't mince words in pointing the finger directly at Starmer. The shift towards speech policing aligns perfectly with the political priorities of the current Labour government, creating what Neil describes as a troubling form of soft authoritarianism seeping into British society. The real question is why? Why would any government direct precious policing resources away from violent crime toward monitoring speech? The answer, according to Neil's analysis, is chillingly simple: control. When authorities can make examples of ordinary citizens for harmless comments or jokes, it sends a powerful message to everyone else. Watch what you say, or you could be next. What Neil has brought to light represents a pivotal moment in British policing. The public's patience is wearing dangerously thin, with frustration boiling over into organized protests across the country. Social media platforms have become virtual town squares, where citizens openly express their disgust at a system that's more concerned with policing jokes than protecting communities from genuine threats. This groundswell of public discontent signals something more profound than just temporary outrage. It's the collective recognition that fundamental values of British society are being undermined. The two-tier policing approach has created a perception that there's one law for ordinary citizens and another for violent criminals who seemingly operate with impunity. Neil's scathing assessment cuts to the heart of the matter. British policing, once the envy of the world, has fallen so far that each new scandal somehow manages to sink its reputation to previously unimaginable depths. The question now isn't whether reform is needed, but whether the damage to public trust can ever be fully repaired.